Now I would like to welcome to the stage a lifelong conservationist and a career public servant committed to advancing conservation through his collaboration at the local, state, and federal levels. Terry Cosby was raised on a cotton farm in Mississippi, purchased by his great-grandfather in the late 1800s, and Terry and I have that in common. His love for the land began at an early age and transitioned into his career path. He started with the Natural Resources Conservation Service in 1979. His devotion and commitment is evident, given he was appointed chief of the NRCS in May of 2021. In this role, he oversees the 3,000 NRCS field offices and their employees across the nation. I know I speak for the entire NACD board, membership, and staff when I say how grateful we all are for Chief Cosby and NRCS's partnership to assist us with advancing our mission of locally led conservation, and how we can continue to grow and improve those efforts with the help of NRCS. NACD is grateful for the relationship it has with NRCS, and particularly appreciative of Chief Cosby's willingness to travel to be with us here today in person. With that, please join me in welcoming NRCS Chief Terry Cosby to the stage.
Good morning, and it's great to be here with you. Before I get started, I have a couple folks I'd like to introduce who came along with me on this journey. Mr. James Tillman, the Regional Conservationist from the Southeast. And also the great state conservationist here in Florida, Mr. Warren Hernandez. Warren, are you in this audience? And folks, thank you for the invitation. It's great to be here this morning. And you know, I spent about 16, 17 years in Ohio as a state conservationist. And sadly this week, well, I shouldn't say sadly, but this week we had a new state conservationist start there in Ohio. I have one last thing that I need to do. I have to do this because I know there's a lot of Ohioans in this crowd. So, OH! All right, that's it. That's my last official duty that I have to do. So good morning. I want to thank Jeremy and all of NEC, Michael, Mr. Brown, Mr. Deusterhouse. I tell you what, we have a great relationship working together. We do a lot of great things together. We talk, we laugh, we talk about serious issues, and I will tell you, you have great leadership, and the partnership couldn't be any stronger. You know, it's tough calling in to 10 to 15 meetings every day on Zoom or Teams. And we've been talking about this conference for a long time and being here. And we finally got it worked out that I could be here today, this morning, to visit with you. And that's important for me. And because I want all of you to know that NRCS is your key partner in conservation. And we want to maintain that. So again, good morning, and I have some prepared remarks, and every time I do this, sometimes I forget them and start talking, and my staff get really nervous because they don't know what's going to happen next, but I am going to stick to script this morning and say, you know, it's great to be here. And this is one of those organizations, along with the district employees, that, you know, started way back when President Roosevelt decided that conservation is a good thing and created districts. And NRCS along with that. At that time, we were the Soil Erosion Service, and we went on to be the Soil Conservation Service, and then the Natural Resources Conservation Service, because we encompass so much. But our relationship with you has never changed. It's been a great relationship. You know, I've been working for the agency for over 40 years. I started back in Iowa, and Tim and I, we didn't know each other then, but we've grown to be good friends. And, you know, it started with a district technician who trained me on all the practices that we were installed at that time. I would tell you, There was a lot of days, a lot of hot days. I was on the end of on a rod. We were shooting terraces, our pond, or all those practices we used to do. And it was great just doing that because now I have that knowledge. I can still design a terrace. I can still design a pond. And I think that's just great that you can gain that knowledge. But I spent my first few years with a technician. Now, I told the folks this morning, now he didn't like me too well. And because you know what happened with technicians and soil cons, you walk into a county, you're there for a few months, you get promoted and you're gone. That technician is there a lot of times for a lifetime. But they're great trainers. And I want to say good morning to Director Manning this morning. It's great seeing you, great having you here. Thank you for being here. This is a great partnership. I wasn't sure I was going to be able to join you today. And, like I said, we figured it out, got it worked out, and it is just so great to be here. As the 17th chief, let me tell you something. It's an honor just to stand here and be part of this partnership, but it's an honor to stand here as the 17th chief of the NRCS. And I will tell you that I was sworn in back in May, but as you probably know, I was acting since the first day that the Biden administration came in back in January. And being sworn in and given the key is a lot different than being acting. And we have done a lot of amazing things, a lot of great things. And I will tell you that this partnership couldn't be any stronger. My love for the land started at an early age. And my family were cotton farmers. And while USDA is a great place and has always been a great place, we have some things in our history that's not so great. My dad was a cotton farmer, had to give up the farm, didn't give up the farm, but gave up farming back in the 70s. And I will tell you that's one of the saddest days in his life when he had to quit farming, because that's what his grandfather had done, that's what his dad had done, and that's what he was raising me and my brothers to be, farmers. But back in the 70s, because of reasons that we're still facing today, he had to give up farming and go to town and get a job. But I will tell you that it's fun being a farm boy. It builds a lot of character, as you know. And in the hard work that goes into that. One of the things I hated in the mornings, getting up and before the crack of dawn, going down and breaking ice on the pond so the cows could drink. I hated it, walking through the timber early in the morning. Now, the other thing I didn't like is, we did a lot of this work with mules. And so one of my jobs was to get up, and my brothers did it before me, go out and catch the mules and get them ready to go. I will tell you that's something that's really interesting. Now, some of you might know about this. It is really hard to sit behind a mule all day that's been eating green grass all night. So if you know about that, it's pretty tough. This partnership is a shared responsibility that, like I say, started with my parents. And as I talked about, President Roosevelt's creating this partnership back in 1937. We've been working with districts for a long time. And like I said, my early beings and my early training came through district employees. Back that time, NRCS supervised the district employees. And, we went away from that, where we have district managers now that do that job. But I would tell you that partnership still remains strong. This national partnership is working together to reinvigorate our conservation planning, a capacity to deliver one-on-one conservation, ensure the delivery of voluntary-based conservation. Folks, voluntary, locally led, voluntary is something that you'll hear me say a lot. That is very important. And we want to make sure that continues. Locally led, voluntary conservation. And we will continue to talk about that. The National Conservation Plan and Partnership Strategy ensures that field staff have the right expertise, are stationed in the right location, and have enough time to work one-on-one with our diverse conservation base. I want to thank the folks that have been working on this conservation planning model. I know there's still a lot of work to be done, but we really, because, if you think back, when I was a soil conservationist, I had a planning goal. It's 102s, 104s, 106s, 108s, for all of you that can date back to that long. I had a planning goal. And part of my accomplishment was, if I could keep my job, is going out and making sure I was writing a conservation plan. At that time, it was the 10 steps of planning. Now we're down to 9 steps. But that's very important when you're working with those landowners, to be able to go out, sit down with them at their table, or recently across the hood of the truck, and talk to them about what their objectives are. What are you trying to accomplish? And then leading to maybe some of our financial assistance programs, and helping them try to maneuver that to figure out, okay, what's the best practices and what's best for my farm. And I've heard it say many times this morning, one size don't fit all. That's why that conservation plan is so important for that producer to sit down and do that. And so we have to continue to work on that. What does it look like? What should be there? And because we want to make sure we do the right thing for that landowner. You know, that leads into, we've heard a lot, some of the folks talk a little bit about equity. I'm going to talk a little bit about the priorities from the Biden administration through Secretary Vilsack all the way down to my agency. And I talked a few minutes ago about the hardships that my family went through on the farm back in the 70s and had to give up farming. Folks, you know, one of the things is that we have to make sure that anyone that wants to benefit from any of our federal programs, our state programs, no matter what they are, that they have that opportunity. And it shouldn't matter where they live on the land, what they look like, or who they are. And one of the things that we are doing is making sure that we're advancing equity and looking at what are these systematic barriers that we put up that permit folks from walking through the door and benefiting from these programs. And that's something I've tasked my team with, is to look at all the programs that we administer, to make sure that we haven't, you know, there's some unintended consequences sometimes. And so we're making sure that we have not done that. We're looking at all of our programs to make sure that folks have an equitable way of participating in all of our programs. And this has been bold, this has been historic, and we're looking how we can root out the generation of systematic racism in some of our programs. Last month, Secretary Vilsack, on my behalf, announced a $50 million investment in 118 partnerships across this country. And some of you will see those, and some of you will be working with the individuals that receive these grants. One of the things that we need to do is make sure anyone out there knows about all of the things that USDA have to offer. And we're hoping that we can also talk about all the things that the districts have to offer. And so we did these 118 partnerships. You know, there's a vast array of folks that receive these grants. And so we're going to continue to do that, and hopefully we're going to make sure that anybody out there that, the thing is, knowledge is a great thing. We want to make sure folks are knowledgeable. Whether they walk through the door or not, that's their call. We want to make sure they understand what these programs are all about and that they can walk through the door at any time and sign up. One of the things that we've done is we've created a website where all of our programs are there. Has all of the dates, because there's a lot of confusion around when is this sign up, when is that sign up. A lot of our programs are year-round sign-ups, but sometimes we batch these things and we fund what we have on hand, but we continue to take those sign-ups. So we have a website now dedicated for that, and so anyone across the country can go and look for any state out there and look to see what those dates are. You know, these agreements that we just signed, they're fostering new partnerships. We have a lot of new partners that walk through the door with these, and we're continuing some of the relationships that we've had in the past with these agreements. Also, recently, Secretary Vilsack announced the members of the Equity Commission. The American Rescue Plan and the President's Executive Order on Advancing Racial Equality gave USDA a new set of tools to increase opportunities, advance equity, and address systematic discrimination in USDA programs. This included funding and standing up an equity committee. This is a 15-member commission, and they're going to be sitting down with the secretary and talking about USDA and the programs that we administer and how we make sure that folks have an opportunity to do that. Also, there's a 15 members on an agriculture subcommittee, and so they're going to be providing valuable advice to the secretary on how USDA administers all programs, not just the ones at NRCS, all programs across USDA. You know, when we talk about climate change, I know that that raises questions and people, you know, have different thoughts, but it's happening, folks. If you look at what happened out across the West, and the director talked about that a little bit, from the droughts to the fires to the hurricanes and flooding and all the things that are happening around this country. You know, we've been looking at how NRCS can tailor our programs to make sure we meet the needs of those customers. You know, climate change is happening, and America's agriculture communities are on the front line. At the beginning of the year, we announced several new and expanded opportunities for climate-smart agriculture. And I heard the panelists up here talking about, semantics. We're just changing the words on some of these things. And I think I've been doing this, and a lot of you've been doing this all your life. It's climate-smart agriculture. We just put a name on it. And when we look at this, some of the things that we're doing, we've just signed a new partnership with Farmers for Soil Health, through which we set a goal of doubling the number of corn and soybean acres using cover crops on 30 million acres by the year of 2030. And that group includes folks like corn, soy, pork, the Soil Health Institute. A lot of folks that are involved in this. And we met this last week, and a great group of folks, and I know a lot of you belong to a lot of these different organizations. But that is the goal, 30 million acres by 2030. We invested $38 million through the new targeted cover crop initiative in 11 states. We had 11 states out there that came and said, hey, we'd like to advance cover crops. And Chief, do you have any money? And so we were able to come up with some dollars. The states put some skin in the game, and we were able to do this in 11 states on cover crop. And then recently we expanded the Environmental Equality Incentive Program and the Conservation Incentive Contracts option nationwide. We did this in 4 pilot states last year, and so this year we've extended it nationwide. So I know there's sometimes people saying, okay, what's the difference? You know, we have classic equip, we have the incentive contracts, and then we have next option is CSP. And so I won't spend a lot of time getting into the nitty-gritty of those, but they are available. You know, farmers are resilient, and they've long demonstrated leadership in environmental stewardship. And we know that the demand on this climate is going to increase. And the additional investment in Build Back Better Act would help meet the demands from the farming community for conservation support, enable producers to realize the full potential of climate benefits in agriculture. When Build Back Better passes, whatever form it passes, we're standing here, we're ready to implement that. These dollars would be targeted to the most effective conservation activities to address the climate crisis. And NRCS, I keep saying, we're well positioned, and along with our partners, the districts, to help us with that. Additionally, last week, Secretary Vilsack announced a $1 billion investment in partnerships to support agriculture climate-smart farmers and ranchers and forest landowners through USDA U Partnership for Climate-Smart Commodities. Hopefully you all heard him. He was at Missouri at Lincoln University, one of the historical black colleges, when he made this announcement last week. Huge investment, folks. We have a notice of a funding opportunity, and we're not accepting proposals through fiscal year 2022. We're committed to supporting a diverse set of farmers, ranchers, and forest owners through climate solutions that increase resilience, expand market opportunities, and strengthen rural America. Through partnerships for climate-smart commodities, USDA will provide target grant funding to meet national and global demands for climate-smart commodities, expand market opportunity to increase the competitiveness advantage of American producers, and improve consistency and clarity in the market for climate-smart commodities. You know, once these grants are awarded, we will provide support to any of these that are working with multiple producers and landowners applying climate-smart production practices on farm, ranches, and forest landowners. This is very exciting, folks. $1 billion. And like I say, the first round is open, and I hope districts, I hope NACD, I hope a lot of you are looking at this in ways to help producers in your area. Because climate-smart commodities will help scale up the deployment of climate-smart agriculture and forestry practices nationally, and increase our understanding of how to effectively monitor, measure, and track greenhouse gases benefits of these practices over time and at scale. And as we move forward with these partnerships as well as the NRCS existing programs, one of the things we're going to continue to focus on, and I keep saying here, is partnerships, voluntary and incentive-based, and focus on creating new opportunities and markets for agriculture and forestry. Talk a little bit about urban. You know, I've heard several other folks talk about urban this morning. You know, that's something that I've worked a lot on with the folks, especially in Ohio. The model that we are building, I will tell the folks from Ohio that the model that we're using nationally right now is the Cleveland model. And, you know, one of the things that happened in Cleveland is that back in 2012, now Secretary Fudge, who was Congresswoman Fudge, approached me and said, "Hey, listen, I need help in my urban district. You know, from a lot of these, from low birth rates to a lot of the kids dying at early age from health problems in the district." She was saying, "How can NRCS help?" We sit down and we talked about it. And we started talking about ways we could do this. You know, one of the things that you'll help me say often is your life expectancy, your zip code and your life expectancy should not match. Because in Cleveland, in a lot of the cities that we talk about, if you're in the inner city, your life expectancy could be 15 years different than driving 10 miles down the road. As much as 15 years. So we have a lot of folks now that like to grow local and buy local. And so how do we help with that? And so back during the 18 Farm Bill discussion, urban agriculture was made part of the Farm Bill. And now we've been able to establish an urban office where NRCS leads this effort. But just because it's positioned at NRCS, it is a USDA-wide office. And it's more than USDA. We have a number of other federal agencies that we're working with to talk about what can we do in the urban areas to help. And I know a lot of you in this crowd have worked in urban areas for years. And you continue to do that, and we want to learn from you. We've established 11 urban offices around the country. There's going to be more established where we will have staff in those offices. Whether in FSA, Zach Ducheneau, my FSA counterpart, and we've been really talking about this. We are going to staff those offices. In some of those places, there will be a urban county committee, and most of them will be an urban county committee. It'll be a little bit different than the rural county committee, so there might be two committees in that county, one for urban and one for rural. And so it's exciting. We're going to continue down that path, and I would tell you that from that, we've also established the first ever Secretary Advisory Committee on Urban. It's a 12-member group that was announced recently, and they will be giving advice to the Secretary about everything urban and how do we make sure that we put some of the focus on our urban communities. Folks, we have room at the table for the urban folks. This does not take away from what we do in rural America. We have room at the table for both. And I hope that we all embrace that and we're able to help in the urban area. Talk a little bit about infrastructure. You know, NRCS is also committed to ensuring communities have the tools and support to build more resilient communities and watersheds. The Infrastructure Investment and Job Acts includes special support for NRCS watershed programs. You know, in mid-January, I went out and asked the state conservationists to start working with sponsors to look at how do we support watersheds. Folks, everyone, I think it's Bass Pro Shop or Cabela's talks about everyone lives in a watershed. Well, it's true. Everyone lives in a watershed. And we need to look at some of the things that's happened out there. You know, in the watershed programs, we have three different things. We have planning and implementation, we have rehabilitation, and then we have EWPP. And so we receive money in all three of those areas. One of the key things in a lot of the communities now we're having struggle is finding sponsors, local sponsors, to help get a lot of these things rejuvenated and back going. And I know there's a lot of work here, and you know, who qualifies as a sponsor? You know, local entities, municipalities, counties, districts can be sponsors. We need sponsors out there on the landscape because we have a lot of folks that are experiencing, you know, from needing to get debris out of the creek to needing to go in and do rehab on some of these aging dams. It's amazing that when we put these dams in 50 years ago, that most of this land was agricultural land, and now it's amazing with the number of homes and roads that are below these dams, and a lot of these dams have lived past its life expectancy, and it could be some critical things happen here if we don't go back and rehab a lot of this. So please, if you're out there and we need sponsors in a lot of these states, please step up and be a sponsor. A little more about the partnership. You know, one of the things that we talk about is we can't do this job alone. It takes a lot of folks. And for my life, over my career, the districts and NACD has been the trusted partner, one of the trusted partners, the trusted partner, because I'm afraid if I say the only trusted partner, I have a lot of other partners out there that are going to say, Terry, all right now, wait, whoa, ho, don't do that. But, you know, you've been a trusted partner. And as I talked to the Employee Association this morning, the district employees, you know, the last 2 years have been challenging. And it's been tough. And we know that our employees, you know, safety is our number one thing for our employees, folks. Safety. And I know there's a lot of talk about, well, we need those folks back in the office. I know a lot of producers I've talked to said, well, we want to see those folks back in the office. And I think that because of the precautions we took, we're in a better place today to go back to the office and provide that assistance that we have not been in the office to provide. Now, I would tell you that this staff is resilient. Your staff and my staff are resilient because they figured out how to get this work done, even in the midst of a pandemic. It's been amazing. I look at the amount of work across this country that our staffs are doing. It's been amazing. And I'm interested to see, once we do get back to the office, if productivity is going to go down or if it's going to continue to go up. You know, that's one of the things we'll have to look at. But it's been amazing. I know that the pandemic has caused some things across the country. But like I say, it was a precaution. By us taking care of our employees, we took care of the public that expected so much from us. And the numbers are looking, you know, good. And so we're working through. We have a pandemic coordinator, Homeland Security person that works, gives us daily briefings. And so with some of the numbers, we've been able to increase staffing across the country in some of our field offices. And we're going to continue. And it's science-based numbers. Working with the White House and working with CDC, we look at these on a daily basis and make those decisions on how many employees should be there in those offices. You know, with the somewhere between 2,500 and 3,000 offices across the country and 11,000 employees, you know, we cherish the partnership that we have with you. And as I told the District Employees this morning association, that it's like a marriage. Sometimes you hit some rough spots. Sometimes you may need to go get counseling. Then you hit another rough spot. You might talk about divorce. Go get a little more counseling. But in the long end, you figure out that we're better together than we are apart. That's the message I want to leave with you. We're better together than we are apart. And it seems like sometimes a lot of the local issues can tear us apart. we really encourage you to look at what those local issues are, try to work out those local issues. And that's what I talk to the state conservationists about, because I talk to the regional conservationists about, because if you bring the issue to me, that might be a winner or a loser. But if you sit out there and figure this out, everybody wins, because you're able to do it together and figure that out. You know, it's great being here with you. I wish I could stay here. Wish I could have came last weekend and been here with you for the entire time. James is going to be here for the rest of the day. I'm going to have to leave, but it's not because that I'm mad at any of you, because, you know, I want to walk around and shake every hand and talk to everyone here. That's kind of my nature. I hate going to the grocery store because I always find a friend. And we talk a lot. And it's been, I tell you what, this pandemic has been tough on me, because I love to talk to folks and be around folks. And especially if we can talk about conservation, and especially if we can talk about bow hunting, deer hunting, shooting a few mallards, all those type things. Really enjoyed that. Folks, thank you for, before I wrap up here, I know that a lot of the state conservationists and a lot of the staff around the country is watching today. I want to express my appreciation to all of the NRCS team and also to your team for the work that they're doing. My folks really wanted to be here. We got pressed pretty hard about this meeting. And we made the decision that we're going to have them stay home for a little bit longer. But I think as things progress, we'll see what happens. I know that there'll be a summer meeting coming up here. But I thought it was important, because you know what's going to happen now. They're going to see me here. And they're going to see Mr. Tillman here. And they can say, well, why did you guys get to go? Sound like, you know, it kind of sound like my kids when they get to fight in the backseat of the car. Well, how come you got that and I didn't? But they're great folks. And I just wanted my appreciation to them, because I know they're sitting there wherever they are, if they're in their office at home on that computer screen looking here. And I tell you what, like I say, it's been a challenge, but I really appreciate them and the work that they all do. And I really appreciate this partnership and the work that you all do. And let's continue this conversation. Let's continue this voyage together. And thank you for the opportunity to be here with you this morning.